Chapter 5. Defense Against the Dark Arts. The next morning, Harry and Hermione walked into the Defense Against the Dark Arts classroom after their breakfast, wondering how on earth they might keep Ron happy. It had taken so long for him to fall asleep, just as normal Ron did, woken up late and unfortunately not back to normal. Ron was still a stubborn and ever-swearing toddler holding his toy broom. His pockets were stuffed with biscuits, which were weighing his trousers down. They were already nervous, knowing they'd have to manage toddler Ron through class. "Ron, please just sit quietly, Ron," Hermione said, blushing. "I don't want Lockhart's class to become a haven for havoc." Harry grinned. Hermione still hadn't shaken off her inner fangirl. He didn't fall for it one bit. If any of those stories of Lockhart were true, Harry's thoughts were interrupted by what, or rather who, stood on a chair at the front of the class. Hermione was still lecturing Ron, who, of course, just couldn't wait around long enough to listen. And so, no running around and no saying bloody biscuits, hell yeah, as if you're Mad-Eye shouting constant vigilance at a motivational war camp, rally boosting the morale of thousands of army soldiers. Ron cut her off, already squatting on the floor, trying to shove another crumbling biscuit in his mouth. Harry laughed so hard it hurt. Ron looked like he was trying hard to use the bathroom right there and then, while casually eating biscuits. "Me does what me needs to do's, lots of do's," Ron said defiantly, looking up stubbornly and still squatting. Before Hermione or Ron could argue any more, she saw Harry pointing in amazement and amusement. There were pages scattered everywhere, sheets of parchment scribbled on with colourful inks and doodles. Glitter had somehow been involved too, and the classroom floor was covered in bits of scrunched-up paper. But the biggest, or rather the littlest, surprise wobbled at the front of the class, scribbling furiously with a quill. It was none other than Professor Lockhart, only now a toddler Professor Lockhart. "Great, how amazing. Do we have to look after this one too? Why's this all even happening?" "Listen, Hermione, I'll get whatever they need, but I refuse to change nappies." Hermione glared over at Harry. Lockhart looked up from his scribbling. "My poo's golden. I sign them for everyone because me de best, the very best. Look, me learned how to write, my grafey." He held a piece of paper up which had a drawing of Lockhart with glitter and a scribble at the bottom, which Harry took to be Lockhart's signature. "And let's just skip this lesson and take them to lunch. Yes, both of them, Harry. We can't just leave them on their own," Hermione said, holding Ron's wrist a bit tighter than needed so as to prevent him running off. Toddler Lockhart wore his bright purple robes, now comically shrunk down to fit, kind of. They still hung off of his shoulders, which seemed to be the least of his worries for now, because he was sitting on a desk, smearing ink across his face as he tried to sign parchment. He was drawing crude, childish versions of his own face, big smiles and sparkly eyes in bright colours. "Ta-da!" Lockhart squealed in delight with his high-pitched toddler voice, throwing glitter into the air as if expecting applause. "Me famous, me make book." Hermione laughed, smiling, but also letting go of Ron's wrist without realizing, forgetting what madness it might cause for the moment. "You have to admit he looks even more adorable now than before." Then she blushed deeper than a red berry dipped in tomato soup, coated in red lipstick and paint for good measure, realizing what she'd just said. "I didn't mean I didn't not like." Her voice faded as Ron, who had been busy with his biscuit, suddenly realized that Hermione wasn't holding his wrist anymore. He looked up and burst into laughter at the sight of toddler Lockhart. "Bloody hell, Professor, a baby!" He pointed, giggling uncontrollably. "Look at his shiny hair!" Lockhart didn't understand the ridicule, thinking it was a compliment. He beamed at them with a grin as wide as his tiny, glitter-covered face. "Yes, yes, me best baby wizard, me famous, me write book, sign books for all." He reached for another quill, his small hands knocking an entire bottle of ink over. It spilled all over the desk and floor. "Oopsies!" he said, his smile not faltering at all, looking completely overjoyed. "Me fix it, me great wizard fix everything." Hermione giggled again, finding herself liking toddler Lockhart better than his normal self. "Oh my God, we have to watch what he does next, and then we'll go to lunch. We could make Ron and Lockhart play together. This is a great day." Lockhart was still oblivious to everything. He picked up a mirror he carried everywhere and admired his reflection. "Look at me handsome!" He ran his tiny hand through his golden curls, preening in front of the class. "Everyone love me so pretty." Ron giggled again as he got up and started running around, pointing at Lockhart. "Stupid hair, me got better broom, me fly." He started zooming his toy broomstick around the floor, making loud whoosh noises as he pretended to fly. Hermione knelt beside Ron, trying to keep him from getting too wild. "Ron, please, no flying in class." Ron stuck his tongue out. "No, me fly, me better than him," he shouted, pointing his tiny finger at Lockhart. "Bloody stupid baby professor." Harry, watching the chaos unfold, sighed. "I'm a bit bored and hungry, Hermione. Come on and let's go and eat lunch. Bring these if you want," he said, waving his hand at Lockhart and Ron. Meanwhile, Lockhart was standing on his desk, scribbling on the chalkboard with glittery chalk. "Look at me draw." He proudly drew a stick-figure version of himself, complete with sparkling hair and a massive smile, labelling it Best Baby Lockhart. He stood back, hands on his hips, looking very pleased with himself. "Me perfect." Just then, the door swung open and the rest of the class entered, including Neville, Seamus and Dean. They all stopped dead in their tracks, staring at the madness before them. Seamus was the first to speak. Why is Professor Lockhart a toddler?" Dean blinked. Is he playing with glitter?" Harry sighed in annoyance. "I'm hungry. Stop asking questions and let's go and eat." "Hurry up, Hermione." Neville looked utterly confused. Cautiously, he approached Toddler Lockhart. Professor? Are you all right?" Lockhart just grinned, waving him off. "Me fine, me best wizard in world." He twirled around in his oversized robes, sending glitter everywhere. "Me write books, sign graphies." Ron was causing his own style of mischief, climbing up onto a chair and standing on it, proudly waving his toy broom as high in the air as he could. "Me a better wizard. Look at me. Bloody great broomstick flyer." Hermione groaned. "You know what? You're right, I am hungry too." Lockhart didn't notice Ron's challenge. He had grabbed a bunch of parchment and was furiously scribbling his name on it, giggling as he added glitter to every signature. "Me famous, me sign for everyone, me make best books." Ron clearly didn't like the fact that Lockhart was ignoring him. He stomped his tiny foot on the chair. "No, me best, me say bloody broomstick fly." He started jumping up and down on the chair, causing it to wobble dangerously. "Ron, get down!" Harry rushed over to stop him, picking Ron up and holding him tightly over his shoulder, and walked out of the door, leaving Hermione and Lockhart with the other students. There would be no more stomping on chairs from Ron. Good thing Harry had picked him up before he could fall. "Me no hurt, me strong," Ron protested loudly all the way down the corridor, wiggling in Harry's arms. "Me bloody strong wizard. Put me down, oi bloody down." Back in the classroom, Lockhart was gleefully scribbling. Then he started throwing bits of glitter into the air again, giggling like a delighted child. "Me make sparkle, me make magic pretty, everyone love me." He twirled around again, knocking over an entire stack of books. Seamus burst out laughing. "This is the best defence against the dark arts class ever. Look at him, he's a bloody baby showing off." Dean shook his head, chuckling. "I can't believe this. We've got a toddler professor and a toddler Ron. This is such a fun day." Neville looked, as he usually always did a lot of the time, completely baffled. He whispered to Hermione, "How did this even happen?" Hermione sighed, but finally pulled her act together, striding toward Toddler Lockhart and picking him up, giving him a pot of glitter just to keep him from squealing, just like Ron was, doing all the way down the corridor. "I can't even be bothered to explain. After lunch we will. It happened to Harry and me yesterday, and now it's Ron and Professor Lockhart. That's the top and bottom of it for now." All of the class students followed behind Hermione. Some of the other Gryffindor girls looked impressed as Hermione, with Toddler Lockhart on one of her hips in a real motherly style, walked down to the Great Hall where they could eat some lunch and hopefully could at least enjoy that. But as they entered the Great Hall, they were greeted with a sight that made both Harry and Hermione freeze in place, eyes wide with disbelief. Sitting proudly in the middle of the head table, also in toddler form, was none other than Albus Dumbledore. Now, Albus Dumbledore. He was bouncing in his chair, his feet barely reaching the edge of the seat, and yet he still wore his regal robes. Most shockingly, he still had his iconic silver beard, but now it was a tiny, wispy version of it that barely reached his chest. No, please, not him too. Hermione gasped, glaring in anger, scaring Lockhart. Lockhart's bright smile faltered, and he pushed against Hermione's shoulders, trying to get down, whimpering. He slid down carefully. "Dumbledore?" Harry gasped, staring in disbelief. "Why is this happening?" Dumbledore, with all the confidence and charisma of his adult self, seemed completely unfazed by his new form. He was humming to himself and scribbling with a quill, much like toddler Lockhart had been, except he was drawing stick figures of himself. His quill floated with little bursts of magic, as if even in toddler form, his magical prowess couldn't be entirely suppressed. "Me best wizard!" Dumbledore suddenly declared in a sing-song voice, pointing at his tiny chest. "Headmaster great wizard of late, Chief Wizzygamot, me run school lots." He threw his hands in the air, looking around as if he expected applause. Hermione blinked rapidly and shook her head in dejected acceptance. "No, what can we do with them? I just want a break now." Hermione almost cried. "Dumbledore too?" Harry stood frozen, unsure whether or not to laugh or panic. The one man who could have dealt with this, who could have fixed it, was now a toddler victim to the same problem he could have gotten rid of. He's rhyming," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Dumbledore grinned widely, twirling the end of his tiny silver beard with one hand. "Me the boss, wizard head. Me lead school. Tuck you in bed." He sang, bouncing in his chair as if it were all a game. Toddler Ron still clutched his broomstick. Suddenly he piped up. "Bloody Dumbledore a baby too, this stupid." He crossed his arms, glaring up at the head table as if this whole situation had personally offended him. Toddler Lockhart was completely unaware of Dumbledore's presence and continued signing random pieces of parchment. "Me still most famous, me wizard bestest, Dumbledore second place," he mumbled, clearly unconcerned about anyone outranking him. Hermione decided on an idea to get. Some peace, just some. All this was stressing her out. Just watching it was making her rub her temples. "Let's go to Hagrid's and let the other professors manage the toddlers for a while. First Ron, then Lockhart, and now Dumbledore, and he's rhyming about his achievements." Harry was equally stunned. "I don't know, but this is getting way out of hand." As they stood there watching in shock, Dumbledore slid off his chair and toddled across the hall, his tiny legs moving as fast as they could. "Me run school, me so cool," he chanted, his voice high-pitched Dumbledore-like confidence. "Silverbeard, wizard feared, everyone know me best." Harry couldn't help but gawk. "He still has his beard." Hermione groaned. "Of course he does. Even as a toddler, he has to keep the beard." Dumbledore finally reached Harry and Hermione, his eyes twinkling with the same mischievous spark they'd always had. "Me lead Hogwarts, best in the land. All bow to me, I take command." He giggled, holding up his tiny hands like a king asking for loyalty for life. Ron, never one to be outdone, stepped forward, puffing out his little chest. "No, me best wizard, me bloody best," he declared, waving his toy broom around as if it were a powerfully magical staff from an ancient past. Dumbledore looked down at Ron and narrowed his eyes in mock seriousness. No. Me big boss, me run school. You play broom, you little fool." Harry slapped a hand to his forehead. "Oh yes, a toddler standoff. I love this." Lockhart didn't want to be left out. He waddled over, covered in glitter and scribbles, and shoved his stack of parchment toward Dumbledore. "Me sign book, me famous wizard, me better than you, Headmaster Big Baby." Dumbledore gasped dramatically, pointing his tiny finger at Lockhart. No, you no famous, me more great. You sign books, but me run state." Hermione groaned. "They're arguing about who's the best toddler." Ron was fully invested in the competition. He threw his toy broomstick on the floor and stomped his foot. "Me best, me bloody beat all." Dumbledore, ever the tactician, put his tiny hands on his hips. "No, no, no, me beat you all. Wizard King, me stand tall." He then proudly pointed to his miniature beard. "Look at beard, wizard feared, me so cool, me leader clear." Lockhart puffed out his little chest, his golden curls now slightly dishevelled. "Me so great, Wizard 8, you just baby me right fate," he said, shaking his parchment with a flare. Harry could barely believe what he was hearing. "They're rhyming and arguing as toddlers." Hermione stepped back. "I'm going to ask Professor McGonagall if we can go to Hagrid's for a break. She can deal with the toddlers. Wait here." And with that she swiftly turned and walked out of the great hall, leaving Harry with the toddlers, who, sadly in amongst them, included Dumbledore. Chuckle. Harry and Hermione trudged across the grounds of Hogwarts, both of them utterly exhausted from all of the chaos that had happened all in one morning of the day. After dealing with Toddler Ron, Toddler Lockhart and Toddler Dumbledore, settling them with Professor McGonagall, at last they would get a good hour of peace and a nice chat with Hagrid, and just maybe a nice peaceful nap too, just maybe.